The research vessel Eternal Truth drifted silently through the debris field that had once been the proud mining station of Prime. Captain ran his scaled fingers across the holographic display, watching the radiation readings spike and fall in patterns that all known physics. 3 months had passed since the first reports reached the High Council, and still nobody could explain what had happened here. Captain called his science officer, her voice tight with confusion. These energy signatures, they don't match any weapon in our databases, or anyone else's databases for that matter. Moved closer to examine the readings himself. They had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 8,000 years. They had fought wars against the crystalline, negotiated treaties with the gas-based, and even managed to contain the aggressive empire to their corner of space. In all that time, across all those conflicts, nothing had ever produced destruction quite like this. The mining station hadn't just been destroyed. It had been unraveled. Molecular bonds had been severed at levels that should have been impossible. The massive asteroid that housed the station showed signs of having been carved apart with surgical precision, as if someone had taken a blade sharper than anything that existed and simply cut through matter itself. "Sir," another officer spoke up from the communications station. "We're receiving a transmission from the fleet that was investigating the Helios system attacks." "Put it through." The holographic display flickered, revealing the imposing figure of War Commander On, his 4 arms crossed over his heavily armored chest. They were natural warriors, evolved on a high-gravity world where only the strongest survived. They had never shown fear of anything in the decades they had known them. That's why the expression on On's face was so disturbing. "Captain, the commander began, his voice unusually subdued. "We need to talk. What we found at Helios, it changes everything." "Commander, if you have information about these attacks." "Not attacks," On interrupted. "Defense. We found records, fragments of data from the monitoring stations before they were eliminated. These weren't random strikes, Captain. Someone was hunting, and they found what they were looking for." I felt his blood temperature drop. "Explain." "The targets weren't chosen randomly. Every location that's been hit was conducting deep space archaeological surveys. Mining operations that were digging too deep, research stations that were analyzing too much. They were all looking into the same thing." "Which was?" On's image leaned forward, and for the first time in all his years of military service, I could see genuine fear in a warrior's eyes. "The old ruins. The ones we've been finding scattered across dead worlds for the past century. The ones that don't match any known civilization." Every member of the bridge crew stopped what they were doing. Those ruins were legendary throughout the galaxy. Ancient structures that showed technology far beyond anything the current galactic powers possessed. Most scholars dismissed them as remnants of some long-extinct race, interesting for archaeologists but nothing more than historical curiosities. "Commander, surely you're not suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything," On cut him off. "I'm telling you what the data says. Every species that's been digging into those ruins, every government that's been trying to reverse engineer that technology, they've been marked for termination." "By who?" "By whoever built those ruins in the first place. And Captain, they're still out there." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Truth in stunned silence. Was the first to speak. "Sir, if the commander is correct, then we have a serious problem. The High Council authorized 3 research expeditions to study those ruins just last month." I pulled up the mission reports. Deep space archaeological surveys, all studying pre-galactic civilizations, all trying to unlock the secrets of technology that seemed impossibly advanced. "Get me a secure channel to High Command," he ordered. "Priority Alpha encryption." As his communications officer worked to establish the connection, I found himself thinking about the stories his grandfather used to tell him. Old legends that most children heard growing up. Tales of the first builders, a race that had supposedly seeded the galaxy with technology and then vanished without a trace. According to the legends, the first builders had possessed power beyond imagination. They could reshape matter with thought, travel between stars instantaneously, and build worlds as easily as others built houses. But something had happened to them. Some great catastrophe had driven them away, leaving behind only whispers and ruins. Most educated dismissed these as mythology, primitive stories created by their ancestors to explain things they couldn't understand. But as he looked at the impossible destruction around him, he began to wonder if perhaps those stories contained more truth than anyone had realized. The secure channel opened, revealing the angular features of High Admiral, or the High Command was stationed at the heart of their territory, surrounded by layers of defense that had kept them safe for. Captain, the Admiral began, your preliminary report about Prime was concerning. What have you learned? Admiral, we may be facing a threat unlike anything in recorded history. The evidence suggests that the attacks on our outer colonies weren't random. Something is hunting anyone who gets too close to the ancient ruins. That's impossible. Those ruins are millions of years old, if anything was still protecting them. Then they've been waiting a very long time to act. Finished. Admiral, I recommend we immediately cease all archaeological operations and evacuate any teams currently studying pre-galactic sites. There was a long pause before Or responded. Captain, the technology in those ruins could revolutionize our civilization. The power sources alone could solve our energy crisis for the next 1,000 years. We can't abandon that potential based on speculation. Sir, with respect, this isn't speculation. Entire colonies have been wiped out with weapons we can't comprehend. If there's even a chance that continued excavation is triggering these responses. The High Council has made its decision, the Admiral said firmly. Our research will continue under increased security. I'm dispatching additional fleet elements to protect our archaeological teams. Admiral, I don't think you understand. Whatever did this to Prime, our fleet elements won't be enough. Nothing in our arsenal could have caused this level of destruction. Then we'll adapt, we always have. Don't run from challenges, Captain. The transmission ended, leaving us staring at the empty holographic display. Around him, his crew went about their duties with the mechanical efficiency of trained professionals, but he could see the worry in their movements, hear it in their voices. Sir approached quietly. I've been analyzing the molecular damage patterns. There's something else you should know. What is it? The precision of the cuts, the way the energy signatures dispersed. It's almost like a signature, a calling card. Meaning whoever did this wanted us to know they did it. This wasn't just destruction, Captain. It was a warning. As if to punctuate her words, the ship's long-range sensors began detecting a new signal. Far out at the edge of the system, something was moving, something large. Captain, the sensor operator called out, his voice rising with alarm. I'm reading multiple contacts, large vessels approaching at impossible speeds. IFF signals. None, sir, these ships. They don't match any configuration in our databases. I felt a chill run down his spine. Red alert, all stations, battle readiness. Send a priority message to High Command, tell them. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing the bridge in the dim red glow of backup systems. But the main computers were dead. Communications were down. Even basic navigation was failing. What happened? I demanded. Unknown, sir. It's like something just reached out and touched our systems. But that's impossible. We're shielded against every known form of electronic warfare. Through the main, I could see lights in the distance. Ships unlike anything he had ever seen before. They moved with a fluid grace that physics, their hulls seeming to bend light around them in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Sir, whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror. According to these readings, those ships are constructed from materials that shouldn't exist, the quantum signatures. They're showing elements that aren't on any periodic table. One of the strange vessels moved closer, and as it did, a new presence filled the bridge. Not a voice exactly, but something that spoke directly to their minds. When it came, it carried with it the weight of eons and the cold certainty of absolute power. Children of the secondary waves, it said, and each word seemed to echo with the depth of space itself. You have awakened that which was meant to sleep. You have disturbed the dreams of the first race. I tried to speak, tried to respond, but found that his voice had simply stopped working. Around him, his crew stood frozen, caught in the grip of something far beyond their understanding. For millions of your years, we have slumbered, waiting, watching, hoping that the younger species would prove themselves worthy of the legacy we left behind. Instead, you squabble over scraps like beasts fighting over carrion. Images flooded into their minds then. Visions of vast cities that stretched across continents, of ships that could tear holes in reality itself. of beings that had transcended the physical limitations that bound every other form of life they knew. We were your predecessors by an age so vast that your civilizations are but moments in our memory. When your sun was young, we had already mapped every star in a dozen galaxies. When your worlds were still cooling from their birth fire, we had learned to create life itself. What do you want? A managed to force the words out through sheer will. Want, the presence seemed amused by the question. We want nothing from you, little ones. We have already taken what we required, but you have taken something of ours. We haven't taken anything. We're just researchers trying to understand. Understand? The voice turned cold and the temperature on the bridge seemed to drop by several degrees. You seek to weaponize what you find. Your governments, your militaries, they see our ruins not as monuments to be respected, but as treasures to be plundered. You would take the tools we left behind and use them to destroy one another. That's not, we're scientists. We seek knowledge for its own sake. Some of you perhaps, but not all. Not those who matter. Your leaders see only power, only advantage over their enemies. They would turn our gifts into instruments of war. The strange ships moved closer, and as they did, the very fabric of space seemed to ripple around them. I realized that these beings weren't just using advanced technology. They had become something beyond technology altogether. We left you warnings, the voice continued. Sealed chambers that would only open when your species had reached sufficient maturity. Messages that would have guided you away from the path of conflict and toward true understanding. But those warnings went unheeded. You opened them only to seek greater weapons. We can change, I said desperately. If you give us a chance, we can prove that we're capable of more than war. Change, the presence laughed, and the sound was like the death of stars. You have had 10,000 years of civilization, and still you have learned nothing. Your species make the same mistakes, fight the same wars, seek the same petty dominions. No, little captain, your time for change has passed. Please, there must be another way. We can learn, we can evolve. Evolution cannot be forced, young one. It must come from within, or it comes not at all. Your peoples have proven that they lack the wisdom to handle the power we once possessed. Therefore, that power will be removed from their reach. The ships began to move apart, taking up positions around the debris field that had once been Prime. As they did, I could see more vessels appearing at the edge of his sensors. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Your colonies that have touched our ruins will be cleansed. Your governments that have sought to weaponize our knowledge will be humbled. The younger species will learn that some boundaries must not be crossed. You're talking about genocide, I said, his voice barely above a whisper. We are talking about preservation. Of the galaxy, of the younger races, of the future itself. Left unchecked, your kind would spread like a plague, consuming and destroying everything in your path until nothing remains but ash and regret. We have families, children, billions of innocent people who have nothing to do with the archaeological expeditions. And they will be spared so long as their leaders learn wisdom. But those who would disturb our sleep, those who would steal our gifts for their wars, they will face the consequences of their choices. The presence began to withdraw from their minds, leaving behind a terrible emptiness. Go, little captain, return to your people, tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that the first race has awakened and that judgment is at hand. Tell them that the age of scavenging among our ruins has come to an end. The strange ships began to fade, not moving away but simply, ceasing to be visible as if they were stepping sideways out of reality itself. And Captain, the voice added, growing fainter but no less terrible. Tell them that this was just the beginning. 3 weeks after the encounter at Prime, the galaxy was in chaos. Captain A's report had reached every major power within days, spreading faster than official channels as word leaked from ship to ship, station to station. Fear traveled at the speed of light, and panic wasn't far behind. The High Council had immediately classified his report and ordered a complete media blackout, but they might as well have tried to stop a supernova with a fishing net. Too many people had witnessed the attacks. Too many colonies had gone silent. The truth was spreading whether the governments wanted it to or not. Doctor pressed her palm against the viewport of the research station, Reach, and watched the evacuation fleet departing from the system. 23 ships loaded with archaeologists, and enough scientific equipment to outfit a small university. All of it abandoned in a matter of hours when the order came down from high command. 30 years of work, she murmured to herself. 30 years and they're just walking away. Can you blame them? Dr. James approached from behind, carrying 2 cups of synthetic coffee that somehow managed to taste worse than it smelled. After what happened to the station, I'm amazed anyone's still willing to work these sites. Accepted the coffee gratefully, though she made a face at the first sip. Human coffee wasn't much better than the alien versions, but at least it was familiar. James, do you realize what we're giving up here? The ruins on 442B contain the most advanced examples of first builder technology we've ever discovered. The power systems alone could revolutionize energy production across the galaxy. And if the reports are true, studying those power systems is exactly what got the colonies wiped out. We don't know that for certain. All we have are the panicked reports from Captain. What was his name? And those weren't panicked reports. I've read the sensor logs. Whatever destroyed those colonies used weapons that violate at least 6 different laws of physics. Molecular disintegration on that scale should be impossible. Turned away from the viewport and walked back toward the research lab where their small team had been working. Unlike the massive operations, the human presence in this sector was limited. Just 12 scientists aboard a converted cargo hauler studying sites that the major powers had deemed unimportant. That anonymity had probably saved their lives. Have you heard anything from Earth? She asked as they walked through the cramped corridors. Last communication was 3 days ago. The colonial administration is recalling all research teams to human space, effective immediately. Of course they are, couldn't keep the bitterness out of her voice. Just like humans, the first sign of real danger and we run. Be fair, we're talking about a threat that can apparently destroy entire star systems. A little caution might be appropriate. She stopped walking and turned to face him. James, what if they're wrong? What if these first builders, or whatever they are, aren't the monsters everyone thinks they are? What do you mean? Think about it. If they really are as powerful as the reports suggest, why haven't they just wiped out every spacefaring species in the galaxy? Why attack only specific targets? Why give warnings at all? James set down his coffee and leaned against the bulkhead. Maybe they're just working up to it. Maybe they're testing our defenses. Or maybe they're trying to teach us something. They destroyed entire colonies. Millions of people are dead. Millions of people who were excavating first builder sites without permission. Millions of people who were trying to turn archaeological treasures into weapons of war. Now you sound like you're defending them. Shook her head. I'm not defending mass murder, but I am wondering if there's more to this story than anyone wants to admit. What if the first builders left those sites for a reason? What if they were meant to be discovered, but only by species that had reached a certain level of maturity? And you think we've reached that level? Before could answer, the station's communication system crackled to life. Doctor, please report to the command center immediately. They found Captain standing over the main sensor display, his weathered face grim with concentration. Was an old-school cargo hauler captain who had been running supplies to research stations for over 20 years. Had never seen him look worried before. What is it, Captain? She asked. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts approaching our position. Large vessels, moving at speeds that shouldn't be possible. Felt her heart skip a beat. IFF signals. None, and the configuration, well, see for yourself. The sensor display showed a formation of ships unlike anything in the human databases. They moved with an organic fluidity that made think of deep-sea creatures rather than manufactured vessels. As she watched, one of the ships seemed to simply vanish from one position and reappear in another, covering thousands of kilometers in an instant. How long until they reach us? James asked. At current speed, maybe 2 hours, but if they can do that teleportation thing, shrugged helplessly. Captain, I need you to open a general broadcast channel, all frequencies. What are you doing? James grabbed her arm. Something that might keep us alive. She turned to, please, Captain, I know it sounds crazy, but I think they might be willing to listen. Looked skeptical, but he activated the communication array. Channels open, Doc. You're broadcasting on all frequencies. Took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. Unknown vessels, this is Doctor of the Human Research Station's Reach. I know you're probably here because of the archaeological work we've been conducting. Before you do whatever you came here to do, I'd like to request permission to speak with you. Static filled the channel for long minutes. Then, just as was beginning to think her gamble had failed, a new presence filled the command center. It wasn't a voice exactly, but somehow she could understand it perfectly. "You are not." "No," said aloud. "We're human, we're newer to this part of the galaxy." Humans, the presence seemed to consider this. "Show us your research." Looked at, who nodded and began uploading their data files to the communication array. Their work was modest compared to the major powers, focused more on understanding than exploitation. They had been careful to treat each site as a historical treasure rather than a source of military advantage. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, the presence spoke again. "Interesting, your methods are different. We try to approach these sites with respect," said. "We're not looking for weapons or military applications. We just want to understand who built these things and what they were trying to accomplish." "And what have you concluded?" Glanced at James, who nodded encouragingly. We think they were teachers. The sites we've studied aren't just ruins, they're lessons. Each one is designed to demonstrate specific principles of science and engineering. They're like a textbook written in stone and energy." "You believe we intended for you to find these places?" "Yes, I think you wanted younger species to discover them, but only when they were ready. Only when they could approach them with wisdom instead of greed." "And you believe your species possesses this wisdom?" Hesitated. "Not all of us, maybe not most of us, but some of us are trying to learn. Some of us understand that knowledge without wisdom is just another form of destruction." The presence fell silent again, and could feel it examining not just their research, but something deeper. Something about their intentions, their hearts, their fundamental nature as beings. "You speak truly," it finally said, "but you are few among your kind. Most of those who seek our legacy do so for the power it might grant them." "Then help us become better," said. "Don't punish entire civilizations for the mistakes of their leaders. Teach us, guide us, show us how to be worthy of what you've left behind." Teaching requires a willingness to learn. Most species prefer to take what they want rather than earn what they need. We're willing to learn. We've spent our entire careers learning. Please, give us a chance to prove that we can be better than our worst impulses. Around the command center, the lights dimmed and then brightened, as if something vast and incomprehensible was thinking. Could feel the presence weighing not just her words, but the truth behind them. "Doctor," it said at last, "you and your team will be spared. Your research shows promise and your intentions are acceptable." "What about the others, all the other species?" "Those who seek to weaponize our gifts will face the consequences of their choices. Those who approach our legacy with respect will be allowed to continue their work. The galaxy will learn to distinguish between wisdom and ambition." "How can you make that judgment for entire civilizations?" "Because we have observed civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. We know the patterns. We know the signs. We know which species can grow beyond their primitive urges and which will destroy themselves given enough power." One of the alien ships materialized near the station, close enough that could see details of its impossible construction. It seemed to be made of crystallized light, its hull shifting between states of matter in ways that made her eyes water. "You humans are peculiar," the presence continued. "Your species shows both the greatest potential and the greatest danger we have observed in recent." "What do you mean?" "You are capable of remarkable acts of selflessness and equally remarkable acts of cruelty. You can sacrifice everything for the good of others or destroy everything out of fear and greed. You are a species balanced on the edge of greatness and catastrophe." "So what happens now?" "Now you choose. Your governments will be contacted. They will be offered a simple proposition: abandon their military archaeological programs, treat our sites as the sacred trust they were meant to be, and they will be allowed to continue their research under our guidance. Refuse, and they will learn that some knowledge comes with a price." Felt a chill run down her spine. "And if they refuse?" "Then your species will join the dozen others who have made the same choice. Their civilizations are remembered now only in our archives." "Please," said, "give them time. Give them a chance to understand what you're offering. Most humans aren't bad people. They're just scared and confused and trying to protect what they love. Time is precisely what we are offering them. But patience has limits, Doctor. We have waited millions of years for the younger species to prove themselves worthy of our legacy. We will not wait much longer. The ship began to fade from view, shifting back into whatever dimension it had emerged from. Continue your work, humans. Study our gifts, but remember what they represent. They are not tools of war, but instruments of transcendence. Use them wisely, and your species may yet earn a place among the stars. Use them poorly. The presence faded away, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Well, said finally, that was either the most important conversation in human history, or we're all about to be reduced to component atoms. Sank into a chair, her legs suddenly feeling too weak to support her. Captain, I need you to send a priority message to Earth. Everything that just happened here needs to be in the hands of the colonial administration within hours. You think they'll listen? I hope so, because if they don't, I have a feeling that conversation was just the opening statement in humanity's final exam. James sat down beside her, his face pale but determined. What if we're wrong? What if these beings really are just ancient tyrants who want to keep everyone else from advancing? Then we're all dead anyway, said quietly. But James, did you feel what I felt when they were speaking to us? That wasn't malevolence, that was sadness. They're disappointed in us, all of us. They left us a galaxy full of gifts, and all we've done is try to turn them into bigger and better ways to kill each other. So what do we do now? Stood up and walked back to the viewport. In the distance, she could see the faint glow of the first builder ruins on the planet below. Structures that had stood for millions of years, waiting for someone worthy to find them. We do what we've always done, she said. We learn, we grow, we try to become worthy of the legacy that's been left for us, and we pray that the rest of humanity is smart enough to do the same. Outside the viewport, space seemed somehow different than it had before. Still vast, still mysterious, but no longer empty. Somewhere out there, beings of unimaginable power were watching and waiting, hoping that the younger species would finally prove themselves worthy of joining the community of truly advanced civilizations. Just hoped humanity wouldn't disappoint them. Admiral Sarah stood in the center of the United Earth Defense Command war room, watching as representatives from 47 different human colonies argued with the passion of people who knew their lives hung in the balance. 3 weeks had passed since Doctor's encounter with the first builders, and humanity was no closer to a unified response than they had been on day one. This is insane, shouted Colonial Governor Martinez from the Tau system. We're talking about surrendering to an alien ultimatum based on the word of a single archaeologist. For all we know, this is some elaborate hoax designed to weaken human expansion. Governor, Admiral said calmly, we've confirmed Doctor's report through multiple independent sources. The losses alone. They got sloppy, Martinez interrupted. They were digging around with equipment that could have triggered any number of automated defense systems. That doesn't mean we're dealing with some ancient race of godlike beings. Dr. Foster, the colonial administration's chief, leaned forward at the conference table. Governor, with respect, the evidence suggests otherwise. The precision of the attacks, the technology demonstrated, the sheer scope of the destruction. We're not dealing with automated systems. We're dealing with intelligence, ancient, powerful, and very much alive. Then we fight them, declared General Reeves from the military command structure. Humanity didn't get this far by backing down from threats. If these first builders want a war, we'll give them one they won't forget. With what? Dr. Foster asked. General, they demonstrated the ability to manipulate matter at the molecular level, to move ships faster than light without using conventional FTL drives, and to shut down our most advanced systems with a thought. What exactly do you propose we fight them with? We adapt, we always have, human ingenuity. Human ingenuity isn't magic, Admiral interrupted. And we're not talking about fighting an enemy we can understand. We're talking about beings who had millions of years to develop technologies we can barely comprehend. The holographic display at the center of the table flickered, and a new presence joined the conference. President materialized from her office on Earth, her expression grim. Ladies and, she began, I've just received word from our diplomatic corps. The High Council has officially accepted the first builders' terms. They're withdrawing all military archaeological teams and placing their remaining research sites under international oversight. They surrendered, General Reeves said with disgust. They survived, President corrected. The Empire followed suit 6 hours ago, as did the Commonwealth and the Collective. As of this moment, humanity is the only major power that hasn't responded to the ultimatum. Good, Governor Martinez declared. Let them bow to alien threats. Humans don't kneel to anyone. Governor, the president said coldly, your bravado is noted, but I need you to understand something. If we choose confrontation over cooperation, we won't just be risking human lives. We'll be risking human extinction. Dr. Foster activated her personal display, showing sensor readings from the system. President is correct. Our long-range monitoring stations have detected massive energy buildups near several first builder sites. Whatever they're preparing, it's beyond anything we've ever measured. Then we hit them first, General Reeves insisted. Preemptive strikes before they can. General, Admiral said quietly, I've been in the military for 37 years. I've fought in 6 different conflicts and commanded fleets against enemies that outsmarted us and outnumbered us. But I've never faced an enemy that could erase entire star systems without leaving behind so much as a debris field. If we attack the first builders, we won't be starting a war. We'll be committing suicide. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. These were people who had built an interstellar civilization through determination, innovation, and sheer bloody-mindedness. The idea that there might be a problem they couldn't solve through application of human will was almost incomprehensible. There has to be another option, Governor Martinez said finally, his earlier bravado deflated. There has to be something we can do besides just giving up. Who said anything about giving up? The new voice came from the conference room's communication array, and every person in the room recognized it immediately. Doctor, President leaned forward. Doctor, you're supposed to be maintaining communication silence until... Ma'am, with respect, I think we're past the point of protocol. I've been analyzing the first builder sites here in the system, and I've found something that changes everything. Admiral activated the main display. Explain. The ruins aren't just archaeological sites. They're not even really ruins. They're active, still functional, still learning. Learning what? Dr. Foster asked. Learning us, every species that's ever studied these sites, every civilization that's ever tried to understand first builder technology. The sites have been watching, recording, analyzing. You mean they've been spying on us? Not spying, evaluating. The first builders didn't just vanish millions of years ago. They evolved beyond the need for physical existence, but they left these sites behind as tests, ways to determine whether younger species were ready to join them. General Reeves frowned. Join them how? I'm not entirely sure, but I think they're offering us ascension, evolution beyond our current limitations, but only if we prove we're worthy. And how exactly do we prove that? His voice carried a note of excitement that cut through the tension in the room. By choosing cooperation over domination, by treating their gifts as sacred trust instead of military assets, by demonstrating that we've grown beyond the need to turn everything into a weapon. That's a beautiful sentiment, Doctor, Governor Martinez said. But what guarantee do we have that they won't simply eliminate us anyway? You're asking humanity to trust beings whose idea of negotiation involves destroying entire colonies. Governor, the colonies that were destroyed were engaged in military applications of first builder technology. Research teams that approached the sites with respect were spared. The pattern is clear. President stood and began packing around the table. Doctor, assuming you're correct, what specific steps are you recommending? First, we cease all military archaeological programs immediately. Second, we place all existing first builder sites under civilian oversight with strictly scientific mandates. Third, we reach out to the other species and propose joint research initiatives. Show the first builders that we can cooperate instead of compete. And if we do all that, Admiral asked, what happens next? I think they teach us, really teach us, not just how to use their technology, but how to become what they became, how to evolve beyond the limitations that keep us trapped in endless cycles of conflict and expansion. The room fell quiet as everyone considered the implications. General Reeves was the first to speak. Doctor, you're talking about fundamentally changing what it means to be human. No, General, I'm talking about becoming more human than we've ever been before. The first builders aren't asking us to abandon our nature. They're asking us to fulfill it. Explain. What makes humans unique isn't our ability to fight or conquer. It's our ability to grow, to learn, to become better than we were yesterday. The first builders are offering us the ultimate test of that ability. Governor Martinez shook his head. It still sounds like surrender to me. Governor said gently, what if surrender isn't the opposite of victory? What if it's the beginning of something greater? Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Admiral rushed to the tactical display as her officers fed her incoming data. What is it? President demanded. Ma'am, we're detecting massive energy discharges from 17 different star systems, all sites with active military archaeological programs. The main display lit up with reports from across human space. The Vega System Research Complex destroyed. The military excavation on Wolf 359 gone. The weapons development facility reduced to atoms. But as the reports continued to pour in, a pattern became clear. Civilian research stations were untouched. Doctors' team in the system was safe. The University of New Cambridge's archaeological expedition in the Alpha system reported no hostile contact. They're making their point, Admiral said quietly. Military applications get eliminated, scientific research gets protected. How many people? President asked. Preliminary estimates suggest around 50,000 casualties across all affected sites. The room fell silent. 50,000 people who had been alive an hour ago, working jobs they thought were important, contributing to what they believed was humanity's future. Now they were gone, erased by beings whose motives they had never understood. Ma'am, Admiral continued, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast simultaneously to every human colony, every ship, every station. They want to make sure we all hear this. President nodded grimly. Put it through. The voice that filled the command center was the same presence that had spoken to Doctor, but now it carried a weight of absolute finality. Humans of Earth and the colonies beyond, it began, you have been given time to consider our offer. Some of you have chosen wisdom. Others have chosen the path of conflict. The results of both choices are now evident. The display showed images from the destroyed sites, molecular-level destruction so complete that not even atoms remained bonded together. Your species stands at a crossroads. You may continue down the path of militarization and expansion, seeking to claim our legacy through force. If you choose this path, you will join the archives of civilizations that chose power over wisdom, or you may choose to evolve, to grow, to become worthy of the gifts we have prepared for you. What do you want from us? President asked aloud. We want nothing from you that you are not already capable of giving. We want you to choose cooperation over competition, understanding over exploitation, wisdom over power. These are not alien concepts to your species. They exist within your greatest thinkers, your most compassionate leaders, your most dedicated scientists. Images flashed on the screen then. Human history, but not the parts usually taught in schools. Acts of selflessness, moments of transcendence, times when individual humans had chosen the good of others over their own advantage. You are capable of greatness, but you are also capable of catastrophe. The choice is yours to make, but it must be made now. Those who choose wisdom will find themselves welcomed into a community that spans galaxies and eons. Those who choose otherwise. The images shifted to show dead worlds, systems where life had once flourished, but now contained nothing but empty space, and the remnants of civilizations that had destroyed themselves. This is your final warning, young humans. Choose carefully. The galaxy is watching. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in absolute silence. Dr. Foster was the first to speak. They're not our enemies, she said quietly. They're trying to save us from ourselves. By threatening to wipe us out, General Reeves demanded. By showing us what happens to species that can't learn to grow beyond their worst impulses, she corrected. President stood at the head of the table, her face reflecting the weight of making a decision that would determine humanity's future. Around her, the representatives of human civilization waited for her words. Doctor, she said finally, you're our expert on first builder technology and culture. In your professional opinion, if we accept their terms, do you believe they'll honor their offer to guide us toward whatever it is they've become? Yes, ma'am. I believe they want us to succeed. I think they've been waiting millions of years for a species that could join them as equals rather than subjects. And if we refuse? then I think we become another cautionary tale in their archives, another species that chose extinction over evolution. The president looked around the table, seeing the faces of people who had dedicated their lives to humanity's expansion into the stars. Military officers who had sworn to defend human interests. Politicians who had promised their constituents prosperity and security. Scientists who had devoted themselves to understanding the universe. "Ladies and," she said, "I'm calling for a vote. All in favor of accepting the first builder's terms and transitioning our archaeological programs to civilian oversight under international cooperation." One by one, hands rose around the table. Even General Reeves, after a long moment of internal struggle, raised his hand. "Motion carries unanimously," President announced. "God help us all." As the conference ended, and representatives began making plans to implement humanity's new relationship with the first builders, Doctor remained connected from her research station. She had listened to the debates, the fears, and the hopes of her species, and she understood that this was just the beginning. Somewhere out there among the stars, ancient beings were watching humanity take its first tentative steps toward a larger universe. They had offered guidance, wisdom, and the possibility of transcendence. Whether humanity would prove worthy of those gifts remained to be seen. But for the first time in her career, believed they might just have a chance to become something greater than they had ever imagined possible. The age of humanity as a purely terrestrial species was ending. What would replace it was still being written among the stars.